Well, hello and welcome to another Dev Nation. We're going to be having a lot of fun today. We're going to be talking about Tekton, and I see we already have some messages in the chat. That is awesome. So, DJ Maddie, good to see you again. And then you're looking at Proxmox as an example. So, yeah, let's look at something real quick. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Jump over here. I've never heard of Proxmox, but it sounds like it's open source hardware based on the Googling I just did. And the one thing you would do if you're doing hardware, okay, if you're doing hardware, there's a place you go, and it's cloud.redhat.com or cloud.openshift.com. Another URL for it is try.openshift.com. So try.openshift.com, and all these things kind of redirect, or openshift.com/try. Create your own cluster. You can log in with a developer account here. So you can say create your own cluster. And normally, what I do is I put it on a public cloud provider. So I'm shoving mine up to Amazon, Azure, Google, that kind of thing. Today I'm running Amazon and Azure. But in your case, with your custom hardware, I'm assuming that's what it is, it's hardware, you want to check out this bare metal option here. And then also look up something called UPI, that's user provided infrastructure. Okay, in other words, this is where someone else is giving you the infrastructure as a service, and you have to lay your the OpenShift down on top of that. So explore that as an example. So VMware is more like, so Proxmox is not hardware. Proxmox is a VM environment. So it's kind of like virtualization, right? A virtualization solution. So you would still look maybe at the, you could look at the VMware instructions here, or Red Hat. So there's vSphere here and Red Hat virtualization. You could look at those two options. But again, you will see, so installer, so you see there's IPI, installer provisioned infrastructure, and then there's always a UPI option somewhere around here. So let's see, OpenShift UPI, UPI. Let's see if we can find that real quick. Deploying a UPI environment on OpenShift on VMs. So maybe check that out as an example. And so, give it a try. We actually, if you look for next month, and actually this is a good point. If you go to our next month schedule and you look at the May 18th window, we're trying to get the schedule updated now. We just talked to this team yesterday, but you will see in the May 18th window, we're bringing on our operations people. Okay, we're operations people. So Jafar and Eric, they're going to be running 3 sessions. So they're going to actually they don't have 5 people to run in 5 time zones. They only have 2 people. So they're going to run Asia-friendly time zone in English, French in France, and then they're going to run US-based also. So that's Eric Jacobs. So they can help you more with that UPI kind of installation, because that's exactly, they're going to be focusing on installation, machine sets, all the more operation-centric aspects of it. While this team right here that you see so far is focusing more on the developer aspects of it. Okay? Well, let's get in here and get started. We're going to be talking about Tekton today, and I have a bunch of things to show you, and we don't have a whole lot of time. We tend to run out of time as we go through this process. You'll want to get access to these links to dn.dev Tekton tutorial. Don't forget about that one, and Tekton master. I'll copy and paste them into the chat. Let's just do that real fast. So we have a tutorial. We have a long form tutorial for people to follow, and we'll walk through some aspects of that today. And then, of course, we have the slide deck itself, which people want access to. And this Tekton content, it should be noted, is our newest content. So it is not the most mature yet, right? We're getting there. And Tekton itself just entered beta. We just saw a tweet moments ago. So it was an alpha technology. It feels like an alpha technology many times, but it just entered beta just recently. So just keep that in mind. Oh, by the way, is Vinishu here? Vinishu, don't see you in the chat. I just remembered something. Okay, he was telling me that I wore a black hat yesterday and I need to wear a red hat today. So see, red hat today, right there. Here's his tweet. I'll add the tweet to the chat so you guys know about that. There we go. Oh, there he is. Fantastic. So hit him up on Twitter. Then you can. We got the red hat on today. Okay. So with this pipeline information, what we want to talk about now is Tekton Pipelines. I'm just going to jump ahead to get us moving here. Okay. In the world of pipelines, we have a situation where every different team has to deploy their different microservice. So if you think of it from this perspective, every team has their own microservice or 2 or 3, and those teams have their own deployment interval, deployment schedule, their own path and pace, and they've got their own software infrastructure in some cases. So if you put all that on top of Kubernetes, you kind of want to give them all a custom experience, okay? A custom experience like in terms of the pipeline. And so with this technology, you can let everyone build their own pipeline if you want. Now, we'll show you what that means, and then you may decide, oh, that's a pretty interesting pipeline development tool. But you can kind of use this to compete with something like Jenkins as an example. And one big difference between this and Jenkins is there is no master per se. You know how in Jenkins there's a Jenkins master and Jenkins slaves, and you have the care and feeding of the master, and the master may go crazy on you, and there might be issues. Well, in this case, there is no master. The master is the Kubernetes master, right? If you think of it from that perspective, there's 3 master nodes in a Kubernetes cluster. That's the master, because everything in Tekton land runs like a Kubernetes workload. You'll see that as we get into it. So hello from Fred there from Washington. That's fantastic. And then Jobin from Kerala, India. All right, Jobin, good to see you. Maria, I should say, from Lahore. Yeah, fantastic. James, always good to see you there. Don't do UPI with NFS back storage. Causes problems with etcd. So that's a good point, James. I've never tried UPI. I've only done the cloud provisioning, if you will. I've never tried to use UPI where I actually set up all the infrastructure myself, nor have I actually tried it on bare metal. But I know it works because lots of people tell me they've tried it. So that's that's definitely been something that people work with. But your mileage will vary. Obviously, some paths are better laid down than others, if you know what I mean. Better well trod. Okay, so let's actually show you a quick demo of what we mean by pipelines, though. So let's kind of give you a feel of how we get started. I'm actually going to give you a URL to this thing right here. Okay, this is my little demo application. And let's see. Okay, you guys saw this same demo application if you came to the Istio presentation, right? So this is the same application. So if I come over here and switch it to, let's say, green, you guys will get green, and you're going to get the green long before you even hear what I say, right? Based on the delay in the stream. I'm trying to see how long it's going to take to get to you guys. And so you have green on your side right now, and now you have green in the video. So it takes a little while. Hello, David. Good to see you here. So Parisius, hopefully I said that name correctly. Parisius. I'm close, somewhere in that range. But he's interested, James, if you have more feedback on NFS storage and what to do with UPI there. But that's the beautiful thing of UPI. That's the beautiful thing of bare metal installation. Everybody is custom. So any combination of network gear, storage gear, servers, racks, even the way you wire these servers together in the rack, all that can cause, different hiccups and different things. But here's what I want to show you. Okay, so I just flipped you guys to green. I can flip you guys back to blue. That's what we had before with Istio. But what I really want to show you is the pipeline itself. Okay, so this demonstration also has a pipeline built into it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go over here and change this code base. Okay, right now I've mapped the pipeline pull from my repo. There is, in fact, a different repo for this code base. So let me actually give you guys that. Let's see here. So you guys can have this little demo. You can see we've been hacking on it over the weekend and last night. Okay, so here we go. That is the demo we're looking at right now, but I have it forked into my repo so I can make quick edits of it. So I'm going to come in here and basically say, hey, I want to make a change, and I'm going to just hack on this thing. I'm going to change it from blue to canary. Okay, and I'm going to say this is the Aloha. So it's a real simple hack. I'm basically saying Aloha canary, and I basically have a string here, and the canary I'm just overriding the color. You notice I'm ignoring the parameter, the config injection here. Basically, I want to do it all with Java code, because in the real world, you're going to be editing Java code. You're going to commit that change. Now, this is normally where a webhook would kick in and then kick off your pipeline. Don't have a webhook in this case, so you have to manually kick off the pipeline. Our application is still running out here. It's still got the blue or green, but now we want the canary deployment. So what I'm going to do is kick off the canary pipeline here. And then, so this is a whole pipeline. And a pipeline in this case has numerous steps in it, numerous tasks in it. We're going to talk about what all those things mean in a second. You can kind of see right away here, there's 0 through 11. See, it says pod initializing, 0 through 11. There's 11 different containers running in this pod. Okay, so that's probably the most you've ever seen. If you saw Istio, you're used to 2 and 2. If you saw Knative, 2 and 2. It has one sidecar and one business logic container in the case of Knative or Istio. But in the case of this crazy thing called Tekton, there could be 11 containers in your pod. And you can kind of see that's one thing right away that's changing. If you're watching my screen right now, you're also seeing it download the internet and do a Maven build. All right, that's what just happened there. Now it's essentially doing a Docker build, and that's what the process is right now. And then you'll see it do a Docker like push, and then it'll push the image to the registry. This is not using Docker, by the way. I'm just using those terms because that's what people are familiar with. And then you're going to see it roll out a deployment. Okay, so if you think of this from the perspective of what you normally do as a developer, okay, you got your source code. You're going to have to do a git clone to get the source code onto the computer. So git clone has to occur first. Then you got to do your Maven package, right, to get your fat jar, to get your Uber jar, whatever it is for your application. So git clone, Maven package, and then you're going to basically do a Docker build, okay, and then you're going to do a Docker push. If you're using a regular laptop, that's the 4 steps. And your last step will be a kube control apply-f, right? And then that's your deployment YAML, and out the application goes. In this case, you can kind of see now the canary pods are coming online right here. So the canary pods are being deployed, and we actually had a two-task pipeline. The first one was to do all the building of the, do the git clone, do the Maven package, do the Docker build, do the Docker push. That's what the first one was. And the last one was basically to then do a kube control apply. Okay, that's what this one was, and it had 4 steps in it, so 0 through 4. You'll notice these numbers count down from 404, 304, 204, down to 04, and then it's a completed task. See how it says completed here? So it's no longer a running pod, it's just completed in that stage. Now, let's go out here and look. Let's see if my canary pods are working. So there they are. And so let me just flip the Istio route over to Canary. Okay, and let's check it out here. And let's see here. Yep, okay. Let's see if it goes Canary, and there it is. It's the Canary color, and it has Aloha there. And you can kind of see it's using those 2 Canary pods that we have deployed out there. So that is the soup to nuts pipeline, and we're going to kind of break it down now and walk through exactly how you get one of these things for yourself. Can Tekton be triggered via webhook? We don't have an example of that, and so the answer is, in theory, yes. and because you might have to build some infrastructure for it, okay? Because if you'll see us, what we do here is we actually manually start all these things from a command line tool. It's called TKN, okay? And TKN start is how we get going. So TKN task start to start a task or to start a pipeline start. If we actually look at this one right here, this is something we should do is actually provide a webhook endpoint of some sort, right? A webhook is nothing more than a simply like a curl command, if you will. So you just have to have an endpoint that gets invoked, and then it can run this pipeline start as an example. But otherwise, I'm not seeing any infrastructure in the current version pipeline that Tekton that gives you that webhook endpoint right out of the box. But it wouldn't be hard to do all that. One point of Tekton is for you to self-assemble some of these things, right? It gives you a bunch of primitives, and then you kind of build on top of that. So let's kind of see if we can rock and roll through this concept. Okay, some key things here. All right, Tekton originally came from the Knative project. So we did Knative yesterday. We did Istio on Monday, Knative yesterday. And so Knative did have multiple components, right? It had all this concept of specialized routing and special auto scaling and event binding and all this really cool stuff. And it used to have a thing called image build for building images. That was so popular, it got extracted from the Knative project and pulled into its own project. It was so popular, it got extracted out of the Knative world completely and became its own foundation. So the concept of image building in cluster is so important to people that it kind of rose up to its own level, if you will, and became its own thing. So it used to be called Knative Build. A year ago, if you were looking at it, it was called Knative Build. If you sat through one of our sessions, that's what we would have called it. Now it's called Tekton. This is the nice logo for it. They got a cool logo, and they got a nice domain. Now, a couple things you should just keep in mind. One is, it has these different components in it, these different CRDs, custom resource definitions, that you'll want to be familiar with. All right. The pipeline resource is if the pipeline resource is specifically something where you have a input and output, right? Think of it like that. Your overall pipeline execution needs the input. The input typically is a Git URL, like where is the source code at? That's a good example. All right, so where's the source code at? That's an input resource. There might also be an output, like what is the image that comes out the other end of this thing? So I want an image that is the accounting image, the customer service image, the hello world image, whatever comes out the other end. Okay, there are steps involved in this process, right? So there's a step. You do A, you do B, you do C, you do D. You need to do them in that order. And so the steps are very critical. You can think of them as mapping to things like your git clone, like your Maven package, like your Docker build, the things that we mentioned earlier in your typical workflow, okay? There's the task. The task, of course, basically wraps the steps. The task is a series of steps that happen in a sequential order. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then, Pratik here says, it's possible to trigger with webhook. I've tried it by setting up an event listener. I think in that case, an event listener, is that a Knative event listener? I'm kind of curious to see if you did a Knative eventing event listener or what was listening, right? You just have to have something to listen so you can trigger it. The pipeline, of course, is a series of tasks. So I have another image here that I like to use to help people grok this thing. Okay, let's look at it right here. So pipeline, all right, a pipeline is a couple tasks, or 2 or 3 or 4 tasks. Typically you see 2 in a pipeline. There's just a couple tasks there. There might be a couple more in the future. In our examples, we only have 2 right now. And so a pipeline is a series of tasks, and then a task, okay, has a series of steps inside it. So a task can have 1 or more steps. These steps are containers in the pod. So the task is a pod. So if you have a 2-task solution, you have 2 pods. And then you have as many steps represent that many containers. So every time you add a step to the YAML in a task, you'll see a new container being born to run that. And so one thing to keep in mind is that the pod, all the containers within a pod share the same lifecycle. That's true of any pod, right, in Kubernetes speak. They share the same lifecycle. They share the same resources. They have the same underlying volume mounted. So that's important because each step might do like the git clone, then you do the Maven package, then you do the Docker build. You don't want to have to grab those sources between every step. Yeah, that's an expensive operation, right? To go pull the sources again and again and again and again. You want to pull the sources one time, like you would if you're working off a laptop, and you want to do your Maven build, you want to do your Docker build, then do your Docker push. So bear that in mind. But in order to cross the task boundary, okay, you got to have some third-party storage to store your assets that you've been building. So just bear that in mind. You got to keep that, just in the back of your head. So it might be a PVC, it might be something else like, S3 bucket, but you do have to have a place to store things between tasks, okay? But within a task, your little steps basically all have access to the same shared resources, okay? So that's kind of the core concepts. But what I want to do now is show you how we build some things, okay? I'm checking out, make sure there's no errors here, and that all looks good. So we're going to build some things, and we're going to come back and look at more of these slides in a little bit. Okay, let me go over here. And there's that guy. Okay, let's kind of show you some stuff here. Okay, let's go here, go here. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm in a project called Tekton Tutorial, okay? And Tekton Tutorial there. And so I don't have any pods running right now. Notice there are no pods. There's also another command line tool we use. It's called tkn. Just keep that in mind. tkn is be an important thing here. And let me see if I have any tkn resources. No. Do I have any what's called tasks here? Do I have any tasks? Nope. Okay. So there's a couple different ways to get started here. And here's the easiest way, or a simple way. One is to copy an existing YAML that represents what you need. And how do you know what YAMLs do you need? You can do a kube control get CRDs, and then you do a grep and look for Tekton. This is how you know if you have Tekton capabilities in your cluster. And so you can kind of see right here, there's some things that are interesting already, right? There's tasks, we mentioned those already. Pipelines are made up of tasks. Notice there's no steps here, because steps are just containers within a task. So you have pipelines, you have tasks. There's a thing called a task run. Think of that as the execution of a task, and there's a pipeline run, and that's the execution of a pipeline. And so that's where your logs are, all right? So when the thing is run, generated logs, you're going to go there for your logs as an example. And there's also the pipeline resources, okay? And let's see, trigger template. Okay, so in this case, you mean these event listeners, the Tekton event listeners here, as an example. I think that's what Pratik is referring to, not the Knative eventing eventing, but the Tekton eventing listeners as an example. And we've not had a chance to really document that yet. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how to make that work and get that documented for our tutorial as an example. But Pratik, if you have an example you'd like to give us, we accept pull requests there. Manish says, I believe the reason for intermittent storage is because tasks run in their own pods and those pods go away as soon as the last step executed them. Yes, right. So if that's kind of what I was saying. Maybe you said it better there for me. So in this case, if you think of it from a task with a series of steps in it, that is a pod. The pod does go away when the task or the steps in it are done executing, in which case there's nothing left, right? Pods are ephemeral. So you do need some other place to store assets in between task 1, task 2, task 3 as an example. Okay, but I think we'll see that here in action. So let's kind of give this a try. I'm going to bring up Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code has a Tekton extension now, which is kind of nice. So you can see Tekton Pipelines here. Is that the one I installed? Yep, that's the one I installed. Just need the Red Hat team put it together, and that does help you with some capabilities here, building out this YAML. And so, like, let me just build a new task file here. We'll call this one. We'll say it's the Pratik YAML here, since he's here chatting with us. I'm going to say task, and I'm going to pick that. So it kind of puts it in there for me. Let's call this the Pratik task. Okay, we're just giving it a name. And then you can kind of see so we got to give it a kind task. So already there's something interesting here. You remember when we did get CRDs, right? We basically saw tasks here. So that's what that guy is, tasks. And so kind task here. So that's an important thing to know. There's the input resources and output resources. Your input, again, is like your git clone directory. Your output would be your, the image that you're creating as an example. So we're going to ignore that for now because we don't have anything for this simple thing we're doing right now. So let's delete those. I'm going to say, we're going to make it say hello here. Okay. I actually like changing the image to like Fedora, something like that. And then we'll just come up here and let's see if I get this right. I sometimes get this wrong. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun. We'll get rid of that. Get this. Echo. And yep, I think I did echo correctly there. And let's see here. Pratik. And then I often get this syntax wrong. So let's see if I got it right at all this time. So the whole point of it is you just have to pick an image. Okay. These can be your images. And often they will be your images, right? Your custom images that have all your build tools built into it, including your own custom security processing tools, things of that nature. That'll probably be the most common thing, is to have your security scanning tools in them. But let's see here. Let's see, Pratik. All right, let me see if I did that correctly. So I'm going to apply that YAML. Let's see, unrecognized Pratik YAML. Let's see, tab version. Oh, this just changed. Okay, yeah. All right, just changed. So there we go. What happened there was they just upgraded things like in the last few hours. Basically, I now have my Pratik task out there, Pratik task, and I think I did it right. We'll find out. So TKN's task start, Pratik task. Let's see here, show log, and I may have got it wrong, in which case we'll get an error. Okay, so let's see it, let it run here. And so right away, notice it's creating a pod. It says 1 and 1. It says running, and it says completed. If you're watching it carefully there, it went from 1 and 1 to 0 and 1, from running to completed. And there it says say hello Pratik task. Okay, say hello Pratik task. And actually, I should have said something nicer in here like hello Pratik. Okay, so let me make that change. I'm going to come up here and reapply it. And I'll rerun my start, and you'll see a new pod being born. So here comes a new pod. See, it says 0 of 1. 0 1 is the second one right here. Then 1 of 1, and then 0 1. So it counts down, and then it goes completed, and it says hello Pratik. So that is your workflow. Okay, you would start building. You would start actually building out your tasks, and then figure out if you need a task that does a certain thing. A couple things that are important about tasks. Okay. One, it has to have a name that makes sense. Okay, so you got to give it some form of name there. The steps within it, of course, represent those containers. So if I come in here and add another step now and say goodbye, all right, bye, and we'll say goodbye, Pratik, as an example. Okay, didn't clean up the completed task. So Mark, good question on the completed. Not by default, okay? So not by default. This list will just keep growing and growing and growing. One of the things you'll see in our Tekton tutorials, we just added a script today. It's called clean completed, and it wipes them out. So the reason they're still there, though, is if you can pull logs from them. At least this is my understanding of why they remain. So in case something went badly, you still want to go back into those things and pull logs from them. And actually, maybe we'll cause an error and see what happens in this case. All right, so let me see. I added the new step. So let's apply it. Let's start it. And in this case, we have 2 steps. So now we should have 2 containers. See, it's now going to be 2 of 2, 2 of 2, and then it's going to count down to 0 of 2. There we go, 2 of 2. And then you'll see it 0 of 2 completed, and it says hello and goodbye, right? So, or hello and then goodbye, yeah, in that order there. Okay, so that concept of having these containers within these tasks represent the pod and its completed status. Let's try it. Let's make an error here. Let's do something silly. Let's see. I don't know what we could say here. Echo X. I don't think there's an echo X, Y, Z. Let's just kind of do something silly there. And let's see if this blows it up. I'm just trying something on the fly now. We're just hacking away here. So you do your cube control apply again. You do your task start again. And then let's see what this little image will give us when we actually try to run an echo XYZ. Yeah, so in that case, we get the error. See, it says there is no echo XYZ. The executable file is not in the path. So this tells us something right away. Okay. You should see that something right away is happening right here, and that is it is running regular old commands in this image. Okay, so the image in this case I used is Fedora. You can pick whatever image you want, and again, people are going to build their own custom images in many cases with their custom tooling in it, and you'll see that in some of our older examples. But this concept of knowing exactly what to invoke in that image is super critical, and so just keep that in mind. Right, you're going to be poking around in there. So instead of having a ls, instead of having a bad thing here, maybe I just have an ls, right? And I want to just do a listing of where I'm at, or maybe I want a pwd. Right, you can basically use commands that you might need there. And let's see what pwd actually reports here. I'll apply, and then I'll start it as an example. Do you use Trident for masters or just persistent storage? Okay, so question for Parisius from James. I'm not even saying his name correctly, am I? Maybe I'm close. Okay. All right, so let's see here. Did that hello Pratik pwd? Oh, see, and right here it says /workspace. Okay, so that's an important thing to know right away. By default, it's going to put you in a place called /workspace within that image. Right, you can see right there, workspace. Keep that in mind, and you can, again, let's clean these guys out, get rid of those guys. Okay, all right. So let's keep going here. What I want to show you next, though, is this concept right here. So that's kind of a hello worldy thing. Let's kind of show you something that's a little bit more interesting. I actually want to run this of tasks, or this task with a set of steps. In this case, we're going to basically have an input, which is the git input, the git source input. So in other words, I want to do a git clone. Remember the steps are git clone. I want to do a Maven build and then do a Docker build, Docker push, right? So this is the git clone portion of it. All you have to do is simply say, I want that input. So in my resources here, I basically have a source, a git type, and source is the name. And then you might have a parameter, which is the contexter. Think of this as where to CD to do the Maven build, okay? And because in this case, the Tekton project, the Tekton tutorial project actually has apps, greeter, Java, Spring Boot. And so if we actually look at where these resources come from, though, they come from right here, this pipeline resource type, and you kind of see where it says git source hello. It has Red Hat developer demos, Tekton tutorial, and there's of type git. So one thing you got to get your head around right away, and resources are one of those things that the Tekton community keeps debating, should they keep them or not keep them, kind of thing. I'm not sure when they might disappear because they keep saying they want to get rid of them. But the concept is that you have some reusable, you want your tasks to be reusable, all right? So I don't want to have a Maven package task that's unique to one git clone directory, that's unique to one project out there. I want to have the Maven package task be something that works across multiple projects. So we separate, in many cases, the actual Maven in this case, and actually this was not even doing a Maven, it's just simply doing a listing. It's doing a listing, and a cat here. And I will use these as examples to just simply verify all my steps. Okay, I want to know that the thing really did get cloned correctly, and so that's what I'm seeing here. And I want to know that I did change directory correctly, right, to the correct place, so I can do my build. So there's not even a Maven in here at this point. It's just listing out the sources, and then it's doing a cat on a specific file. In this case, the greeter controller.java. Okay, but this one, because it does have input resources, we have to then say add these pipeline resources to it. So very straightforward. If you think of it, it's just come up here and apply-f, and let me put in the pipeline resources here, and that means Tekton res list. Okay, so I can basically do a listing of the resources, and I can also do a kube control get pipeline resources in an example here. Okay, so you kind of see right there, there's my pipeline resources. There's the pipeline resources, the get source hello, the Tekton tutorial hello. If we go back and look at my right here, get source hello, and then Tekton tutorial hello. Okay, those guys came from right there, and that's where that came up right there. But notice you can say kube control get pipeline resources. You can say kube control get tasks, because they're based on CRDs. Get CRDs. All right, they're first class citizens of the API, right? So of the Kubernetes API at this point. And I'm working off an OpenShift server, the one running on Azure for me in this case. Like I said, I have one running on Amazon, one running on Azure, but that's what we're working with here. So there's my kube control get tasks. And we already have the Pratik task from earlier, but now let's go ahead and add this other one, kube control apply-f. Let's do the source lister and kind of walk through that one. So now if I do tkn task list, right, there's a source lister cat, and then I can also say kube control get tasks, right? So either one of those ways works, but the nicest way to start it is with this tkn command, tkn start task start source lister cat. Okay, and then in this case it does have to have a parameter, and let me make sure I'm checking my notes, make sure I get it right. The input resource equal to, and the input resource is source equal get source hello, and yeah, I think I did that right. We'll find out. And so this is actually one thing where it gets a little bit confusing, right? You're trying to figure out how do we map all these parameters. Oh, and there's no, there we go. Let's see if I did that right. Okay, so notice this input resource source equal get source hello. Okay, so that one is the tkn res list. If we do that, right, that's the get source hello part of it, and it looked like it executed nicely too there. Okay, but if I come over here and look at this thing, you can see right here, so that's source. All right, so the word source is right here, and in the command, let's go back and look at that command one more time, right there. So source gets mapped to the resource, which was get source hello. Okay, and that means when this guy goes and does its job, it's going to basically do the ls of the workspace source. So that's where the source goes, and then we're going to basically see an ls there. We're going to do another ls of the source main Java. Okay, and then it's going to do a cat, a greeter controller Java. So I will do this sort of thing, and you kind of look at it right here, what happened. Okay, it basically sees source, pom XML, there's a Docker file there. If we actually go look at it in GitHub, okay, let's go look at it in GitHub. Here it is. All right, so source, well, actually back up here. Yeah, so, oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Let me grab the right project here. So apps and greeter Java. And we were doing Spring Boot in this case, I think. Let me double check, make sure I got that right. I got this wrong earlier. Let's see. Oh, context. Where does context go? And yep, apps, greeter, Spring Boot. Okay. Up, back over here. So apps, greeter, Spring Boot. And so we see right here it says the Docker file and the POM XML and all that. So that's what we see right here. POM, Maven, K8 Kubernetes resources, Docker file. So let's see what's happening here in the chat real quick. Can you switch branches? Yes, right? So if you look at it here, you can definitely pick your own branch. And in this case, master is by default, but there's a way to pick your own branch also. I just don't have it set up here. Wait, maybe I have it over here, right? So master, right? Master branch, or put a different branch there. Let's see, what's the difference between Tekton and GitLab Runner? And I've never tried GitLab Runner, so I don't know. Okay, I can't really say anything about GitLab Runner. Let's see, Ansible, unsupported configs for NFS storage. Still fighting on the NFS storage thing there. That's cool. And let's see, kind of hard weekly releases. Screwed up hardware. All right, James is definitely having some fun with getting things installed there. That's definitely fun there. Okay. Took 6 months to figure out on the hardware design. Okay. Well, James, we hopefully are having better success at this point. Can we safely use secrets with Tekton? So in what context would you use, I'm trying to figure out, so like the login to the GitHub is an example, then yes. Or the login to the login to Docker Hub or Quay.io, yes, is an example. I don't know if we have those examples still in the tutorial, but you can, right? So you definitely can. All right, so good information there. Let me show you a couple other things here though. So if you look at this thing, I do these listings, I do the cat. Is that really the code that we're looking at? And the reason I do that is because sometimes I get confused and I can't figure out what really was executed. What was git cloned, what was Maven built. And so that's exactly how this little story unfolds here. So if I look at number 2, okay, number 2 adds on to that concept, but does the actual Maven build. So let's actually do this real quick. So I can select for compare and do a compare with selected here. So you can kind of see the difference between these two. One, they have different names, right? One is just a lister with the cat. This one actually does the builder. Looks like a little different description there. Didn't mean to have that. But right here, you can see it has a build sources example, right? So let's go ahead and build sources. So in the case of the build sources, it's going to do a Maven build. So we mentioned that already, right? You got to do your Maven package. So Maven, and you notice right here, it has a special image. This is good news. We used to not have a special image for Maven. You had to build your own image with Maven in it so you could run Maven as an example. So the fact there's an out-of-the-box Maven at this point is really nice. And then you can use Maven, and then you can basically say clean and package, okay? Pretty straightforward there for doing a Maven build. And then you notice I also basically have another step here that basically says, did it work? And I do an echo fat jar in target, and then I do an ls for that target because I want to know if the fat jar really came out the other end. So one thing that's really tricky is knowing that every step executed as you expected it to, even if you had to do it all manually, as an example. So let me go ahead and tkn task list. Let me see what I have out here. Okay, so the Pratik one we did earlier, the source lister. If I say cube control apply -f now and do the two, right? That's the source build one we talked about, tkn task list. Okay, so we basically now say tkn start task. And actually, let's just go back up here and get that other one. And it's the builder one. So in this case, the builder one. The input is basically the same, so I don't have to change anything there. Let's run the source builder. So in this case, it's going to do the git clone. And you notice now we're up to 7 containers, by the way. Okay, so we went from 1 and 1 earlier to 2 of 2, and then we went to 0, now 4, now we're up to 7. So the number of containers starts building rather rapidly because again, it's every step step represents a container there. Okay, yeah, there we go. All right. So there's the listing of the source code there. It's doing its Maven build and downloading of the internet. So if you're familiar with Maven, this is what has to happen. If you don't like Maven, maybe use NPM and Node.js applications. The behavior is kind of the same. You have to download your dependencies, and that's what's occurring right now. Okay, so if I were to guess, Workspace is a mounted file system that's shared across all containers. Yes. So because it's a single pod, it has a shared file system. /workspace is that common place for all these artifacts to show up in. Again, another reason why I like doing all these listings, because I can then say, well, where am I right now? And I can see that this greeter jar was just created. All right, so that I expected a greeter jar, and luckily I've got one. And that is a good thing for me to have that greeter jar now, because now I can take it the next step, right? It is just a jar file, and I need to now do my Docker build. So that's the next phase of this. So now in the case of a Docker build, oh, actually, I also have an example here where we use Nexus. So you're actually caching the downloaded dependent artifacts. So that's nice. So to use the caching system, I'm going to skip that for now though and go into the Docker build portion here. So let me go ahead and run this task or apply this task. So number 4 here. Okay. And then let me double check. Yeah, let's go do our task start. Well, task, TKN task list. All right, so that is the source builder with image 16 seconds ago. Source builder image. Let me run that. Oh, come on. There we go. All right, let that get going, and then we'll kind of go look at it. So very similar to what we had earlier. Not the big differences are though. There's now a Docker file representation. I need to know where my Docker file is, and I need to know what the destination image is. What am I producing? In this case, it's actually sending it to the local internal OpenShift image registry. Okay, the image registry. You could also have made it Docker.io, Quay.io, something like that. All right, and then you kind of see it's getting a name. In this case, the namespace, and hello world is the image that's going to get produced. You can kind of see there's the ls, there's the cat, there's the build with the Maven, and then did I check for my target? Did I get the jar file at the other end? And then build image. Okay, so I've been saying it's like a Docker build. All right, it's like a Docker build, but you actually do not run Docker build in cluster. So that's one massive change for dealing with this new world in the world of Tekton or dealing with Kubernetes clusters in general. Docker is meant to be run on a laptop. Docker is meant to be run on Windows, a Mac, a Linux machine, and then you say Docker build, Docker push, that kind of thing. It has a daemon associated with it. That daemon needs to be available, and if you run Docker for Mac, Docker for Windows, that daemon is here. In my case, it's literally running up here, right? That's my Docker daemon running up there on my Docker for Mac. But in the cluster, you don't want a Docker daemon. It represents a security concern. And you also just don't want that overhead. So there's another tool out there called Builda, okay? There's another tool, by the way, called Kaneko. You will see a lot of Tekton examples with Kaneko. And let's kind of just give you the spelling of that, Kaneko. So you're familiar with it? So that's what most people will use, is from the Google team. We do not use Kaneko as much here because, one, it's a lot slower, and Builda is a lot faster. All right, Builda is from the Red Hat team. So you're going to see some different. You're going to see some different examples of what different tools to use. So Builda is made for this in cluster type build. Okay, and so you might have, it also has another peer or another brother sister in crime that's called Podman, but Builda is made specifically for this thing. For doing this type of build, you can kind of see it has the Docker file and the output image, and it produces the image, right? So it produces the image, and it went over to this image registry, Tekton Hello World. So that's where the image went. I hard-coded the image name in here instead of passing it in as a parameter, just because it's a little bit easier to figure out. Okay, so you should pass that image name as a parameter. In this case, I just hard-coded it so I can know exactly where it's going and coming out the other end. Let's see some questions here. I'm checking, but busybox container with sleep command. So can you delay steps for a certain amount of time? Jeff, why would you delay a step? Okay, I'm trying to understand why you would delay a step. Because these steps are meant to be run back to back to back to back. Actually, that was quite a trick. By default, containers in a pod do not run in any given order. The fact that they run in the order which they're described here in the YAML was a big trick for the Knative build and eventually Tekton to get right. And that's actually, there's a shim in there that basically helps those things run in the order in which they're specified in the YAML. Let's see here. I approve with yeah. So Vadi, right? Vladdy is also asking, what are you trying to do? Let's see. I'm going to test my image. Let's say I want to wait a week for other teams to test my image. Wait a week. Oh, well, in this case, you're not. So asleep is not going to get you a week, right? At least you shouldn't sleep for a week. You shouldn't hold up that pod for a week. So if you're going to basically have long running processes like that, like weeks or days or months in between, that's a business process engine. Okay, that is like JBPM or something of that nature. That's that kind of tool. Like that's like a mortgage, right? We want to do step A, wait a week, get a human approval, wait another week, another human approval. That's a business process engine. That's not really what Tekton is for. Okay. Don't think it's a good idea. So in a Jenkins pipeline, build an image, then wait time for others to test my image. Yeah, in this case, you would build the image. You would have to wait for others to test the image. That would just be a separate set of tasks, okay? A separate set of tasks. And when I say separate set of tasks, it means it's a whole other pod that's running. And I don't know, you would have to figure out exactly how to time those things, okay? You would have some form of business process engine in that case. I'm not seeing anything in Tekton land. It looks like Alex is looking for in Tekton land. I'm not seeing anything in Tekton land that allows you to do like multi-day kinds of things or wait for some human input kind of thing as much. You do have that in a Jenkins file. So I think that's what we're referring to, a Jenkins file, which is a Groovy script with Jenkins 2. That is the OpenShift, the old OpenShift way of doing pipelines, and it has the wait for a human. But basically, if you go to the Jenkins master, you'll see there's like a little screen there. You have to hit a button as an example. I have not seen anything like that in Tekton land. Okay, but there's my image build. I then want to do my image push. So that is in this other one here. What I do with it? Number 5 here. So it does everything that we saw earlier. Okay, so all my listings, all my cat, my Maven build, my build a build. Okay, build a build, and then it's going to do the build a push. I think it's funny how they didn't actually spell build a build. They spelled build a bud. Build bud. Do you guys know where the word build a comes from? This is a little inside baseball here, right? Or inside Red Hat. Builda, the guy who basically started this project, he lives in Boston. And if you're familiar with the Boston accent, you don't have R's in the Boston accent. So you pock the ka, right? You don't have an R in the word car. It's just ka. So if you don't have a builder, you have a builda. And the other thing is kind of weird. If you have an A, you add an R to it. So you have a database. You don't have a database, you have a database, and you builda instead of builder. So that's where that comes from. All right, making fun of the poor guy's accent as an example. Dan Walsh. Dan Walsh is the guy from Boston. All right, so I wasn't going to say his name, but Manish threw him out there, and James. Okay, you wanted to go ahead and throw him out there. But this is the push command. Okay, and you want to push that image. And again, the same process applies. I can say cube control apply -F here. And this is number 5. And then we have our start command again. Pretty straightforward there. So there we go. And let's see, I'm just double checking my notes, right? So, let's do it. TKN, task list. What is my task? And it is the image build and push. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Let that run. And then we have the show log, and you see the logs come streaming out the other end. Now you can kind of see there's 9 containers. So we kind of went up the scale here, right? We had 1, then we had 2, and then we kind of jumped to 4 quickly, and then 7, 8, 9. So all those different containers running in there as an example. Okay, let's see if steps and tasks are running after each other, could tasks be parallelized? No, tasks are not parallelized. Well, let me say it correctly. Steps are not parallelized. You can have a pipeline which can parallelize tasks. How about that? See if that answers the question correctly. So in other words, a pipeline, which is a higher level construct than these tasks that we're working on right now, could parallelize multiple tasks. Let's see here. Is there another level you'll see sooner in the video? Another level. Oh, the public knowledge. Mr. SE Linux. Yes, that is Dan Walsh. All right. Okay. Yep. So I was just checking the chat there. So you can kind of see it's doing our build image, going through the process. There goes the greeter jar. So I like logging everything out. Now, at some point, this is going to be too much logging for you, and you might not want that logging anymore, but there it did. It pushed our image. Okay. So now we need to see if it pushed our image, and I want to see if that image is in fact in my registry. So what we'll do is we'll build a pod off of it. I'm going to copy and paste this in. Cube control run demo hello in Tekton. All right. So in the namespace, the pod generator, and here's the image that was pushed right there. So Tekton hello world, run that. We'll see a pod spring to life. Okay. A pod comes to life there, and it's running. So let me do a cube control exec it demo hello and bin bash. Okay. Let's see here. Curl localhost 8080, and it says hello right there. All right, see it says hello. And if we go way back in here and look at the Java code, way back before the Java, the Maven build, I'm just scrolling back to these logs. Okay, where to go? oh boy, way back here. This is the problem with Maven. Too much logging. It's way back in here where the Java code was. Oh man, good grief. We may never get there. Okay, I give up. But you would see that that was where the Java code was, and it says hello. Okay, so we have a pod now produced on that image. Now, a couple things I want to make sure we cover with you guys, though. Okay, so in the case of this example, right, we're in the Tekton tutorial. So what we've done, just kind of make sure we kind of recap here. We've got this tutorial resources on my local hard drive, and in my case, I built some custom tasks to kind of walk you through Hello World. In that case, you got to get Tekton installed in your cluster. You can do that through this mechanism here if you're using a Minikube as an example. You notice there is an installation of a registry for your Minikube. In the case of OpenShift, there is a registry, so you don't have to go through that process. So just bear that in mind, right? Then there's the Tekton CLI, and we're using 080. All right, keep that in mind there. That's important. And then, of course, you create a namespace to put everything in. Then you can kind of see you build your resources. The resources, again, your inputs and outputs for your pipeline and your tasks. So your input is typically a URL for GitHub or some form of Git resource. Someone always asks me, can I use Subversion? I've never tried using Subversion, but let me see. I'm kind of curious. Oh, did I lose the catalog? I probably closed the catalog. Let's see here. Tekton CD catalog. Let me see here. Catalog. I wonder if there's a Subversion one here, because someone invariably asks, is there a Subversion? Don't see a Subversion. So I don't know how you would use Subversion, but you know, that is something people ask. We're like, wait, I don't have Git anymore, or I don't have Git yet. Okay, so you basically apply your resources. You then, of course, you got to make sure you do the git clone. The git clone is a built-in task, or built-in step, I should say, based on the fact you said I want source as an example. And you can see from the example, list out the sources. I kind of went further with it, did some more listings, did some more cats as an example, because I can see everything in there. Is the integrated registry required? No, you can. So Daniel, you can use Docker.io, you can use Quay.io, or some other registry of your choice. That's again an example though where you have to have the secret set up correctly, so you can log in to do your push as an example. Right? Most registries are they might have read wide open, but write is almost always protected. So you might have to log in with a secret as an example. I don't know if this example in the doc still doesn't have it anymore, but we used to have it push out to Quay.io. I think there might be a task out here with that still in it. So private git secret, remote registry secret as an example. Okay. So I don't know if we have the docs for that still though. It used to be documented. We went back and tried to make it easier in the Tekton tutorial, and then we've lost some documentation, so I'm not sure if it's still out there someplace. Kamesh might remember where the documentation went for how do you set up the registry secret, the git secret, and then of course how to use them as a resource within your pipeline. But we used to have it, and then we stopped documenting it as an example. Okay, let's see. All right, so you're gonna build, you're gonna push. Once you have your image, you're good. Now, if you noticed, all that happened in one task, okay? And how kind of we can eyeball it a little bit. So let's come over here and you kind of look at our task runs, our tasks here. There's the critique task we were looking at. So in this case, I'm looking at the OpenShift console. You can kind of see pipelines is a first-class citizen. If I go here to the installed operators, you'll see that I have Kafka here, Elasticsearch, Jaeger, Kiali. Because this is the one I've been working with now for last several days, right? We did Knative, we did Istio, and now we have OpenShift Pipelines. That's the Tekton one there. So once you have the pipelines operator installed, you get a pipelines menu option. And you can kind of see I don't have any pipelines here, but I do have tasks, okay? And so with the task, I had the critique task, the source builder, all those things we just saw. And then if we drill down on those, or actually let's go to our task runs here. You can kind of see them being executed. And then you can actually get more information about them. All right, so the task run is the instance of a task or the execution of a task. Same thing with pipeline runs and pipelines, but all that's in here. Let me go over to my other one. Okay, so this is the one we ran earlier, and you kind of see this is what an end-to-end pipeline looks like. If I open up the pipeline here, you can see it has the build Java app. That task includes, you know, the git clone, the Maven build, the Docker push, and then the last one is simply kubectl apply-f with the YAML file, right, to deploy it, right, to get that thing to deploy. And so that's typically what you'll see in this world, right, a 2-task pipeline. Now, we ought to introduce testing here, and that question already came up. How do I do a series of tests? We don't have an example of that at this point in time. Something we need to figure out. And how do we introduce tests and example? And the secrets. So Kamesh is saying he'll add it in the next version. And again, funny, we had that early on, but we worked, this Tekton thing is changing all the time. So when it got more simplified, the secret thing came back out. But do notice they're in the pipelines directory, of which I've added a bunch of stuff here. That's what's in green, but the secret is still here, right? Okay. But the key thing to understand is you really are just building these images, your image that you see there, and you're going to put in the tools that you need. So let me do one more thing here. All right, let me see if I can find, I probably have broken all kinds of things at this point. So I've just been here hacking. And we only have a few minutes left, but I want to do a couple more things here for you guys. Let's see here. Let's go, I'm going into my pipeline. So you can kind of see here's where you can add a task from the catalog. This is an important thing to understand. So you see right here where it says add a task from the catalog. Let me see if I can open up that YAML. All right, there's the OpenShift client. It's a kind task. So one of the things that's happening, if you look at this Tekton catalog, where to go here, and I'll add this URL to the chat so you guys have it. Okay, you can kind of see there's a bunch of pre-built tasks that you can start taking advantage of. So KN for Knative. If you were at the Knative session yesterday, you can use the KN task to basically say launch a serverless service right away, right? So KN has that built in, no YAML required as an example. And that's a popular option. There's the Kaneko I mentioned. There's Builda that you saw in action there. You can kind of see there's Jib Maven. If you have a Jib plugin in your Spring Boot application, that's a cool thing to have there as an example. OpenShift client gives you basically the same thing as kube control, including OC apply-f as something you can use there. S2I, so if you're familiar with S2I, that's part of OpenShift, right? You can use S2I to do the build, which means you don't have to have a Docker file. You don't have to have any YAMLs. You just give it your sources of Python, Node.js, Java, and off you go. So all that's part of it as an example there. Okay. And as Kamesh says, they're right. These tasks are, a lot of them are out of the box already. So when you do install that OpenShift pipelines, and I'm kind of curious here, get cluster task, but I don't know where the cluster tasks are. Let's see if I can find them real quick. And okay, cluster task right there. There we go. Builda, Jib Maven, KN, OpenShift client right there. So get cluster tasks will give you access to the ones that are out of the box. And if you look at it from our tutorials perspective, what we're doing here, where'd it go? Okay, what we're doing here is we're walking you through how to do this with Minikube. And Minikube, you don't get as many things out of the box, right? You got to do these things more. So you can kind of see how a pipeline sets up. The pipeline, of course, is based on multiple tasks. There's the build Java app, there's deploy Kubernetes service, and that's how you get the pipeline going. And I don't actually have, let's see here, I don't have all these things running right now. So let me try this. I haven't tried this. So TKN task list. Okay. So let's put the Java kube control apply. We're just gonna try this on the fly with a few minutes left. Kube control apply. F build app task. Come on, YAML. Okay. And then you gotta apply the pipeline. I probably missed a step in translation here. So where'd my pipeline go? Where'd my pipeline go? This one. All right. So let's do that. Let's see if I have everything in place. Let me actually bring up the code editor so you can kind of see what this pipeline looks like. All right. Up here, see it says pipeline. So in theory, we can run it at this point. Now the running of this thing requires some setup, and I didn't actually make a note of all that. But this is actually where the hardest part is in Tekton usage. It's figuring out how to get your start command right. So it's easy to basically say, pick the pipeline by name, but notice all these little things right here. Like I gotta have this resource set up correctly. I gotta have this set up correctly. Contextor, right? The service account pipeline. And actually this is not required when you're running on OpenShift. It is required when you're running on Minikube. But the start command is the hardest thing. It really is. And so you have to have lots of examples of it. Then you got to kind of really figure out how to get all those little things just right. I spend most of my time figuring out how to get the damn start command to work correctly. Okay. Let me see. Let's try it real quick. I got to have these resources out here. So TKN resource list. TKN resource list. Okay. I have the get source. I don't have these resources yet. So let's see, it was called build resources, kube control, apply-f. We're just hacking now. right? Let's see, get those resources in place. And this looks okay. I haven't tried it. Let's try it. Let's try to run it. See what happens there. Nope. Can't retrieve task OpenShift client because can't find the OpenShift client. And let's see here. So Kamesh, you said OpenShift client needs to be installed. So it's there, but it's not really there. It's there, but not really there. Where'd it go? It was up here. Okay. Let's see here. Let's get it in place. Go. Let's see if that was the right thing to do. And try to run it again. And let's see if I'm missing something else. But this is the process you go through of debugging one of these things. So you actually need to test each task individually. And you saw I had all the LSs, cats, and all those kinds of things. Build each task individually and run it all individually. And then you run the pipeline, which has more than one task in this example. Looks like it's trending along here. I want to go back to my UI over here. And let's see, is this the right one? I think so. Yeah, this is the right one. So this is the one that's running right now. Kind of nice. You can kind of see, you can kind of monitor it from the user interface perspective. Build Java app, deploy Kubernetes service right there. So here's the run. Okay. And let's see, can I get the logs from it here? You can also get the streaming logs directly from it here as well. Okay. Now this is also in the developer console, pipelines, all that's available here. And one of the things you'll see very soon, we couldn't show it to you today, but is the ability to kind of drag and drop and build pipeline definitions. They're working on that right now, but we didn't quite have that running in time to show you guys today. It's actually in 4.4, and we'll see more of that soon. Okay, this thing is cranking along over here, so it looks like it's working out pretty well. Let me get rid of my completed ones. Let's see here, so it makes it a little bit easier to read what's going on. And there we go. And we don't need that hello. Let's get rid of that. Q, that was what I did earlier. Q delete pod. Demo hello. All right. Notice it's entering its second phase and it's trying to deploy Greeter. And it says Greeter is up. Okay. Q control exec IT bin bash curl localhost. Let's see what Greeter has in it. I think it just says hi. I can't remember what it says. Hello. It says hello as well. Okay. But there we go. End-to-end pipeline kind of thing. Oh boy, that was a lot we threw in there, right? GA 4.4 October, November. No, 4.4 is any day now. Look for it. Come talk to us next week. It really is. It's that close. So 4.4 is coming out very, very soon, and you're going to see a different user interface for the pipeline component in there. So that's a question from James. Thank you for that, James. Let me give you guys my survey here, my Survey Monkey, where they can give us feedback. You can basically, give us a rating and say, hey, really loved it. And you notice it's an NPS style score. If you would recommend this to a friend or neighbor, you give us a 9 or a 10 kind of thing. And then, of course, it then ask you, well, just give us a general comment. James, Windows containers. As far as Windows containers go, there is no plans for Windows containers with Tekton pipelines that I'm aware of right now. Windows containers are supported from a Microsoft perspective, but not really supported from an OpenShift perspective, right? So it'll be a little while before the Windows containers, I believe, are fully supported and then supported with our upstack stuff like, Tekton, Knative, Istio, things of that nature, things that are kind of beyond the base level Kubernetes. But we do know people are interested. Now, if Windows is your jam and you really love it, check out this other project. I'm going to try to get someone to give us a tech talk on this one. It's called KubeVirt. Okay, that's another thing that's part of the Red Hat ecosystem. So basically, you can run Windows VMs right side by side with pods. So it looks just like a pod for all intents and purposes. It runs side by side with pods, and that is something that a lot of people are going to be using. As far as full support for Windows containers in 4.4, I don't believe it's going to be a GA in 4.4. Last I heard. But I also missed that meeting this past Monday. That's when we walked through all the 4.4 stuff, and I didn't make that meeting as an example. But do check out the KubeVirt too, because that is something that is coming very soon. It's still a tech preview, even though it's 4.4. It is more of a 4.5 kind of time frame for KubeVirt. But that might be another option for you. And we actually do see this as a popular option for people who basically have a legacy Windows system and they don't really want to figure out how to containerize it. They just want to run it, and they already have a Windows VM as an example. So that's going to be a popular option. Do make sure you got access to the slide deck, right? Do make sure you have access to the tutorial. We kind of walked through a lot of this tutorial today. I'll just give you the direct link here. Make sure you have access to all that. If you have questions, hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on email. That is the easiest place to find me. You can find me in Twitter land here. All right, and that's an easy place to find me. But also, make sure you also subscribe to our channel here in YouTube. And yeah, in YouTube land, because that way you can get alerted for more information. Do monitor DN.dev and upcoming. You will see that we're doing a very fun, I just talked to Max Anderson this morning and we walked through some things, but we are doing a very fun Quarkus tips and tricks techniques presentation with Max just coming up. That's going to be a ton of fun. And then Kamesh is going to show us some hardcore Camel Knative Kafka next week. So that's coming up April 30th. Be aware of that. You've noticed there's no master courses next week because we're doing virtual summit, and that is going to be our focus. So Red Hat Summit, and there's going to be a ton going on there, including a very special demo that's going to be terrifying. We're going to do a live demo at Virtual Summit next Wednesday. So if you guys show up for that, look for my session, and we're going to do a live demo and have a lot of fun. And thank you all for your time today. Luis, thank you so much for that feedback. Dennis, Next Breakpoint, great name, Next Breakpoint, by the way. James, thank you so much. Feel free to chase me down. So James, IIS, yeah, IIS. If IIS land, especially old school ASP.NET, right? You really want to live in a VM. Actually, that's the demo we do. We do an old school ASP.NET app with Visual Studio and SQL Server in a VM, all running as a pod, side by side with pods. That's a demo we've done for a couple years now. That's what KubeVirt allows you to do. Run that as a VM, but it looks just like a pod for all intents and purposes. There's some special care you have to have for networking and storage, and the fact that VM images tend to be big, right? So that's a storage factor, but otherwise, it runs right there alongside everything else in OpenShift. Okay? But do come back, actually, James, for your kind of questions. And Parisius, again, I'm slaughtering your name. I apologize. Do check out the stuff we're going to be doing with the operations folks. That'll be Eric Jacobs and Jafar. They're the experts in all things infrastructure. They'll give us some nice insights on that. Well, I thank you all for your time. We got to check out. So make sure you stay safe out there. Things are changing in our world all the time, but we're having a lot of fun. Do look for us to come back with more Kubernetes and content, more of the Tech Talks. We actually are going to double up Thursdays in May. We're going to do all kinds of things. We're also coming out with AI and ML, if you're interested in those topics, hardcore in June. So lots of things. We're also going to be adding a Friday session for our Tech Talks too. So lots of stuff going on in May. But we'll see you next week at Virtual Summit. Thank you so much.